you get the idea now. That was Pet Shop Boys' a live performance of It's a Sin, a song not explicitly about homosexual, but by two homosexuals about Catholic guilt. The introduction there, the song they used to start that off was I Will Survive. And in the 80s, I Will Survive did become something of a gay anthem due to the fact that there was, it was becoming rarer and rarer to survive the AIDS epidemic. And does anybody know off the top of their heads any of the numbers for AIDS-related deaths in 80s and 90s? So here is a very useful graph which covers 1980 to 2015. And you can see basically from 1980 to 1995 a continuous increase in AIDS deaths, which is lagging just about 3 years behind a continuous increase in new AIDS cases. So it's basically just continuing to spread and kill without hardly any response from the government for the first several years. Minimal coverage in the media, and the coverage which it did get was certainly not favorable towards the victims. And it kind of brings to mind this quote. It's rather famous, perhaps somewhat overused nowadays, but it's a Stalin, probably apocryphal Stalin quote: "A single death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic." And I figured now that we're so acquainted with the course, we have somewhat of the experience of somebody in the who lived through the 70s and the 80s, and who is familiar with this bustling, youthful, gay community, which throughout the coming years would be ravaged. But there were a couple people who were in this course who actually managed to survive the AIDS epidemic for various reasons. One of them, as I mentioned, was Wakefield Poole. He survived the AIDS epidemic, according to his own explanation, because of his cocaine addiction, which, do coke kids. He said that he had such a strong correlation of cocaine with sex that because of his cocaine addiction, he found sober sex to become so comparatively boring that after he quit cocaine, he didn't have any interest in sex. And this pioneer of gay pornography, after being through so many lovers and sex partners, his final sexual experience was waking up to a mediocre blowjob and asking for it to stop. So it's kind of ends with a whimper in a sense.
When you say final, like ever of his life? Ever
of his life, yeah. He from the 80s to his death in, if I'm correct, 2019, he did not have sex again, according to himself. But and then another survivor, as I mentioned in the class about him, was Peter Berlin. And a possible explanation is that he was more interested in teasing possible sexual partners than actually having sex, so maybe that helped him. But did anybody watch the movie Boys in the Band, the movie which inspired Boys in the Sand? Well, I suppose this has probably been more resonant or impactful the last time I taught the class, when it was the first movie. But it was an adaptation of a play written by a gay author, starring majority of the cast was gay men. And the cast, 50% of the people in this photo ended up dying of AIDS. Specifically the ones who played Larry, the cowboy, Michael, Donald, and Harold. And even the person who inspired the character of Harold ended up dying in 1988. And Boys in the Band was the film which inspired the name for the movie, Boys in the Sand. And the star of Boys in the Sand, Casey Donovan, would die in 1987 after having written in 1982 an advice column about safe sex and having been a major AIDS activist. So it's kind of a grim reminder that all it really took was, it all took was one sexual encounter, unprotected or just unlucky, to kill somebody. And Fred Halstead as well, though he didn't die directly of AIDS, his lover Joey Yale died in 1986. And he, 3 years later in 1989, killed himself, saying that I've had the best love of my life and I've had the best sex of my life, so there's nothing left to live for. Jack Wrangler, not Jack Wrangler. Jack Wrangler, as I mentioned, actually made it through the 80s, 90s, into the 2000s. But of course, not all gay porn actors were this lucky, and not all gay porn directors either, because I've already mentioned Fred Halstead, who was both actor and director. But yeah, this is Jack DeVoe. Would die in 1982. He was the one who started Hand in Hand Films, did Drive and Night at the Adonis. And Arthur J. Bresson Jr. died 1987 from age-related complications. And that was after he made his last movie, Buddies, which we'll be watching this Friday. And it also affected the music industry. Jack Morali died 1991 from age-related complications, and Dennis Parker, whose song "Like an Eagle" Jack Morali wrote for him, died 1985. And Robert Mapplethorpe died 1989 from AIDS. We haven't talked about him at all in the course, but somebody very active in this time, also in the music industry. Liberace died 1987. And last week's starter song, the one I started you off with, Sylvester, You Make Me Feel, he would die in 1988. And every single one of these deaths, and of the over 100,000 deaths of AIDS, were their own drawn-out tragedy. It could have been weeks, months, in some cases, years of struggling and of decay before they ultimately die. And I don't know, did anybody end up watching? There's it's called Public Speaking by Martin Scorsese. There's a clip in it where Fran Lebowitz, a famous public speaker, is talking, and she says, kind of reflects on the effect of the AIDS epidemic. And so far we've just talked about all of these famous artists and auteurs who've died, but she talks about less. I have to sign in to confirm I'm not involved. Okay. Give me a moment there. PowerPoint video integration used to be much easier, but it's also in their advantage to let me do it through PowerPoint because they get me to watch an ad through PowerPoint, but I have ad blocker on my. I heard it. You come at a fortuitous time in the middle of technical problems.
The 70s, early 80s, my first real audience was Review magazine. And at that time, that audience was 99.9, homosexual, male homosexual. And that audience was very important to me. This was part of what formed my voice. Everyone talks about the effect that AIDS had on the culture in the sense, people don't talk about it anymore, but when people did talk about it, they talked about what artists were lost. But they never talked about this audience that was lost. When people talk about why was New York City Ballet so great? Well, it was because of Balanchine and Jerry Robbins and people like that. But also that audience was so, I can't even think of the word. Suzanne Farrell went like this instead of this. That was it. She might as well just kill herself. There would be 1 billion people who know exactly every single thing. there was such a high level of connoisseurship of everything that people like this were interested in, of everything that made the culture better. You can, a very discerning audience, a very, an audience with a high level of connoisseurship is as important to the culture as artists. It's exactly it.
And so, her argument there that the death of the audience of AIDS was as important as the death of the artists. She would go on to say it was also selective. It was also, as she puts it, the people who die of AIDS are the people who are getting laid. So when you look through that lens, it's no mystery that this flowering gay porn scene of the 1970s, and again, not just pornography, we've seen other independent movies, the gay films of the 70s, the name of the course, like this is moribund, and this ceases to exist in any near the same level. Wow, you guys made it. Incredible. Anywhere near the same level as in the 70s, throughout the 80s and 90s, not just because there aren't those same actors and those same directors, but because there isn't the same audience. And the people who you see walking into the Adonis, walking into Nob Hill, where they're openly cruising outside of the movies, these were the audience for these movies. They didn't survive the 80s or the 90s as a whole. And those who did wouldn't, want to be in public places as much for reasons just as much of health as of politics. And now we're, of course, having to restart the presentation. And a great primary source on the evolution of gay life throughout the 70s and 80s is a book, The Joys of Gay Sex, which I think I mentioned once or twice, something to possibly read on your own time. But this basically documents throughout the 70s and 80s all of these words and definitions for them as advice for gay men. And here's a section on cruising. If you're having trouble seeing, I'll read it out loud. So, cruising, going on the prowl and looking for sex with a stranger is called cruising, and it happens all the time, everywhere. Over breakfast in a coffee shop, in a store while trying on shoes, at an exclusive reception. But the most common time is night, and the usual places are the streets, parks, bars, baths, discotheques where gay men congregate. There's an art to cruising, and it has a lot to do with timing and with the eyes. Take the eyes first. You're walking down the street and you pass a man going in the opposite direction. Your eyes lock, but you both keep moving. After a few paces, you glance back and see that the man has stopped and is facing a store window, is looking in your direction. If he's not exactly the partner you're searching for, you'll probably register the compliment. His stare is paying you, but leave it at that. But if he does catch your fancy, you may go through the little charade of examining the shop window nearest you. After a bit, the frequency and intensity of exchanged glances will increase, and one of you will stroll over to the other. There are a few safe and stock opening lines, banal to the point of absurdity. Have you got time, or got a light, or where's 14th Street? Or more daringly, you may ask directions to a notorious gay bar you know perfectly well is just around the corner. After these preliminaries, you may extend your hand, introduce yourself, ask him his name, and suggest you have a drink together. And then that's where the section ended originally, but they re-released it in the 80s. That, at least, is how things got done in the less deliberated past, when first names only or fake names were usually used. And then he talks about how much more open gay people had become. That was from the 70s, but he adds a section, one recent and really very good and even necessary use of a conversation during cruising has to do with the AIDS crisis. You can use this talk to find out what and how much your potential sex partner knows about HIV disease and safe sex. You can inquire about his own parameters of safe sex and whether they jive with your own. For example, it might be that he won't have anal sex at all, but will have unprotected oral sex. Or he may be so frightened that he'll only indulge in voyeuristic masturbation from across the room. So it's not just, the art and culture but the life of this period that is dying in the 80s as a result of HIV. And I thought there's also a somewhat interesting section to show how little we've changed. Once it's clear that, oops, sorry, where was I? Since so many gay men now smoke grass, a common invitation has become, want to go up to my place and smoke? The advantage of this line is that if you turn out not to like each other, you can always take off after the joint's been smoked, as though getting high had been your only intention. So, nice excerpt there. But I have my, can't use my phone, I forgot about that, so. Let me see if I could pull up any songs from this album. But yeah, as I mentioned, Sylvester died, but he worked with Patrick Cowley on several songs. And Patrick Cowley, as he was suffering from AIDS, made his last album called Mind Warp. And if you will, just indulge me a bit. It's so you remember how the much more conventional disco music that he had worked on before sounds, but Mind Warp was really a divergence from that. This was the start of the first song, Technological World, which sets up future of dominant technology, where all of a sudden we are invaded by aliens. The second track, Invasion. It's a very elaborate concept album. And every song has its own very distinct sound. As the aliens take over, we're thrust back from our technological reality into a primitive world. And after this whole dialectical process is complete, reality forever transforms. Going Home plays to indicate that the invaders are returning home, and it has a very, probably the most standard disco song out of them all, but comes across almost as humorous after the rest of it. So that's just to show that there's, in addition to all of the tragedy, there was a lot of good art and challenging art that came out of AIDS. I'm sure you know Freddie Mercury, and you've heard this song before, but I don't know how many of you watched the music video for Don't Stop Me Now. This is another 80s song. This is really artificially increasing the length of this class. So all the focus in this music video is really on just him singing here. So I encourage you to pay close attention, see if you notice anything. Maybe raise your hand if you do. Anybody? It's a little subtle. The Hope you put your glasses on this morning. It's notice a similarity in shirt at all between myself and him. He is wearing Mineshaft merchandise from the wow, thank you. Mineshaft merchandise from the Fisting Capital of America gay club in New York City. So no, that's its unofficial title. The Mineshaft is the name though. So yeah, much more visible as you get further into the video. And this time I've managed not to mix up the presentation as well. Yes, another artist a lot of people associate with AIDS is Keith Haring, who made a lot of he did a lot of collaborations, a lot of art in his very own unique style throughout the 70s and 80s, which increasingly focused on the AIDS epidemic. You have a lot of his work calling attention to the epidemic, demanding more discussion about the kind of silent death of the huge number of gay and straight people dying from it. And in the in the context of the 80s, you couldn't help but see the deaths of the epidemic as being linked to the government, who, on the off chance that they hadn't created it in the first place, were certainly not doing much to help the sufferers of it. And he made a lot of very less talked about, but charming art, discuss kind of poking fun at the establishment and the media. These pseudo articles that treat the respected in society with the same level of scandalous indignation that the media would treat, its normal subjects with. My favorite is Reagan slain by hero cop. Ronald Reagan accused of TV star sex death, killed an 8 lover is a close second. He also did a lot more focus on the TV as his career went on. This is one of his many untitled works, this one from 1983. Perhaps discussing America, which in the midst of this conservative revolution was becoming more complacent and more TV addicted, and less useful. Has anybody seen this piece before? Do you wanna?
It's Portrait of Ross.
Indeed, Portrait of Ross. Extra credit for knowing the name. Look at that. This is Felix Gonzalez Torres' 1991 art piece, Portrait of Ross, where the weight of all of the pieces of candy adds up to the weight of his lover who, before he died of AIDS. And in the same way that every passerby is encouraged to take a piece off of the candy, a piece of candy away from the pile. You're not only watching this person actively decay from AIDS, but you're actually a collaborator in it. And everybody who was silent was, as this art piece kind of puts the question, was a collaborator in the death of the 100,000 victims. Another somewhat famous AIDS art piece which stood the test of time was Perfect Lovers. 2 clocks, which are inevitably one's going to die out of lose its battery first, and they'll be out of sync eventually. and kind of represents a sense of mortality, which gay people in the 70s had to face so much younger and so much more intensely than anyone should have to, and than so many other people were, so many of their peers were. And I also wanted to talk about the politics, but before I do, did anybody happen to do the reading for today? I sent a convincing enough email. All right. Do you want to summarize for the
This
class?
is the first reading I've done, so.
Wow.
Thank you. Just summarize the whole thing.
Well, I suppose for context, like so many other of Wakefield Poole's, the excerpts from different chapters of his have very like aloof and kind of. It seems almost as though he's walking on clouds
Yeah.
throughout his life. How would you say?
This one, yeah, this was like the opposite of that. This was like, just felt, it was so sad. I almost teared up. It was so sad. Because it describes a lot of like his lovers, like the end of his lover's life, and at the end, like when he died of, was it of AIDS?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just like the journey that they had together when he started like getting worse and worse, and also like while that was happening, like while he was also filming one of his movies.
Does anybody remember what he does at the hospital in order to get closer when, just as a friend, he would be denied access to see him in his later moments?
Sue.
Sorry?
He said he'd sue.
Yeah, that's right. He's threatening to sue. But maybe more importantly than that, he says something that was very rare to see said publicly and said openly. As I've gone over, the Village People, the gayest band in history, weren't openly gay. So many people who were kind of tongue-in-cheek about their identity weren't openly gay. But he went into a hospital to say, this is my lover, and I want to see him now, not as a friend, but as a lover. So there was, it shows perhaps a constructive as well as destructive effect of AIDS, which is when people were faced with their kind of imminent mortality and this death all around them. They were encouraged to be more political and to be more out in the open, and that's why you had continuation of the gay rights movement throughout the 80s, despite the unusual adversity. So I think the 70s are a very interesting 10 years because they're right before the 60s. Sorry. This is a really easy sentence too, and I fucked it up. They're right after the 60s, and they're right before the 80s. And when you think of the 60s, I mean, I assume it would be the kind of sticking a flower in the gun type of photos that come to mind, or maybe the photos of the civil rights movement. And you had in the 60s civil rights protests that led to the Civil Rights Act under Lyndon B. Johnson. You also had, Vietnam protests, which ultimately, in collaboration, or not necessarily intentional collaboration, but in coinciding with the Tet Offensive, led to the U.S. withdrawal in 1975. Altogether, people associate the 60s rightfully with a lot of revolutionary anger and agitation. And it was out of this period that you had 1969 Stonewall. And you also had big organizations, especially those which would be targeted by COINTELPRO, trying to wield that power and turn it into something. So there was, I'm sure everybody knows, especially after the movie dropped, the story about the Black Panthers and COINTELPRO. Anybody know any other COINTELPRO affected organizations? So a couple unexpected ones. I mean, you could probably imagine the Nation of Islam, but the Ku Klux Klan was also infiltrated. But importantly, a lot of communist organizations like the Socialist Workers' Party was a major target of COINTELPRO on a level not really seen since the Red Scare. And in the 70s, what you have is kind of the lingering revolutionary energy, but no outlet for it. And when you have this tension between people wanting change but not seeing an outlet for their desires, kind of taking this position of disgruntled complacency, you get some very weird and eclectic news stories. Does anybody know anything about either of these?
Patty Hearst on the line.
Patty Hearst, indeed, the granddaughter of this Citizen Kane guy, William Randolph Hearst. Do you know who kidnapped her?
The Symbionese Liberation Army.
Wow, extra credit for naming their completely, I don't believe there is any meaning to the name Symbionese. Certainly none that I know, even after reading their Wikipedia page. But yes, there was a group called the Symbionese Liberation Army, which was composed of radical, feminist, anti-racist, anti-capitalist, anti-lot-of-ist characteristics who kind of, instead of going down the route of mass politics, decided to kidnap famous, well-off granddaughter of a press tycoon, and she helped them rob a bank. And there's a great movie, Network, which I would recommend, which kind of talks about how ineffectual such random acts of violence were. There's also The Weather Underground portrayed next to them, which was a group of mostly kind of upper strata college students who officially declared war on the US government in 1970 and started a bombing campaign against police officers and government officials. And they accidentally bombed a couple of their own members while making a bomb in Greenwich Village. And then they fizzled out and also got COINTELPRO'd. And so by 1976, they were very small, and they tried to host a conference to build their numbers, but just got called racist by other organizations that they invited, which probably not even inaccurately. But this kind of just gives you an idea that in the 70s you have this tension between obviously horrific economy and a hopeless future. A situation where you have economic problems that nobody had even heard of before. You had stagflation under Jimmy Carter. People didn't even think those two things could go together. And you just had the entire, not just the economy and the houses and the cars, but the hopes of the post-war boom just collapsing. But you also had little revolutionary outlet for it. So if that sounds a bit familiar, it would probably be because we're in quite a similar situation right now. And you can learn from the past where people ended up not doing anything to challenge the system to overthrow capitalism. And you had the conservative revolution, the coming to power of the Reagan-Bush administration. And with them in power, they were so fortuitously blessed by the time that they came into power that they didn't even have to kill gay people. They could just let a disease do it for them. So that's pretty much where we lead off to into the 80s. There were a couple more, or really just one more video I wanted to show before I ended class. But and this all takes extra long.
Today, there was more doubt cast as to whether or not the plane A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine. That today from the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, topping the
This
list
in
of likely
1985.
victims are male homosexuals who have many partners and drug users who inject themselves with needles. Medical experts say the disease kills 4 out of every 10 people it strikes and that it threatens to explode in the nation's cities.
Federal health officials say as many as 1 million Americans may have been infected with the AIDS virus, and more than 12,000 are expected to develop the deadly disease next year. Now that would double the number of cases since 1981 nationwide. Here at home, the dramatic hearings concerning a child with AIDS attending school in Queens continued. The protests seemed to be quieting down, but there was a lot of confusion today about a surprising statement by that child's lawyer yesterday. Barbara Laskin reports.
I don't want any of you to assume that my client has AIDS. We'll come to that later.
Again today, there was more doubt cast as to whether or not the plaintiff in this case has AIDS. On the witness stand, Dr. Ari Rubenstein, a renowned figure in AIDS treatment, who said he knew of no child with AIDS who had ever shown improvement after being diagnosed.
So really just a wild, absurd time to be living through. And that was 1985, so I hope that this Friday when we watch 1986's Buddies, which was Arthur J. Bresson's film he made, I believe after his AIDS diagnosis, you can see how wild it was to have something so straightforwardly political and honest about AIDS in a period where when the silence on AIDS was finally broken, again, this is talking about a new gay disease just 5 years into it. The victims are generalized as gay needle users or other types of socially undesirable specimens. So I hope that you benefit from having Arthur J. Bresson get the last word in this course. And I hope everybody had a good time. And I also mentioned to the 2 of you present and 1 of you not present who are taking this course for credit, and you already said that you want to do an in-person final, but if anybody else do you want to do it in person as well, or are you doing paper?
I'll decide.
All right. Well, if the paper would be due on Friday, and if you have, because I can't accept it at normal finals time. And if you want to do the in-person final, it is 1 question, and it will be written out on Friday. You could come a bit early to the screening and do it. Have a good one. Hope to see you all in the comment section of this and other videos.
Yes.
And also your friends and extended family there as well. Have a nice winter term to those of you